Welcome back to the horror story channel Darkness in the Night. Today, the channel is excited to introduce a new ghost story titled The Dormitory on the Outskirts. Before we begin, if you find this story interesting, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel for support. Thank you for listening. Now, let's get started. That afternoon, the road leading to the newly built dormitory was bathed in the pale yellow light of the late sun. Min carried an old backpack on his shoulder and a bag of belongings in his hand. As he walked, he whispered to himself, "Finally, a stable place to stay. No more running around renting rooms." The dormitory was located in the suburbs, nearly 7 kilometers from the city center. It had only been inaugurated less than a year ago, the walls still gleaming white, the entrance lined with fresh greenery. For Min, it was not only a way to save money but also the start of a new chapter in his student life. Pushing open the glass doors of the lobby, Min heard the voice of a female manager calling out. She looked up from a stack of papers and smiled. "You must be Min, right? Third-year student, Faculty of Information Technology?" Min nodded politely and replied, "Yes, that's me. I just moved in today." She handed him a key and pointed toward the elevator. "Your room is on the 4th floor. Room 403. You'll be sharing with a girl named Lan. She's from the same university but a different major. I think you two will get along just fine." Min hesitated for a second, then smiled softly. "Thank you, ma'am. I'll head up right away." Inside the elevator, Min glanced at the floor map posted on the wall. The rooms on the first 4 floors were clearly numbered, but from the 5th floor upward, there was nothing but blank space. He frowned slightly but assumed the upper floors weren't finished yet. When the doors opened on the 4th floor, a brightly lit hallway stretched before him. The air still carried the faint scent of fresh paint. Min found room 403 and knocked. Footsteps approached quickly from inside, followed by a girl's voice. "Who is it?" "It's Min, your roommate." He answered softly. The door swung open. Standing there was Lan, a petite girl with short hair and sparkling eyes. "Oh, you're finally here. I moved in yesterday and have been waiting for a roommate. Come on in, don't just stand there." Min stepped inside, gently placing his bags down. He looked around. The room was about 20 square meters, with 2 bunk beds, a long study desk, and a large window overlooking the backyard. Everything looked neat and bright. Lan quickly pulled out a chair for Min. "Sit down and rest. You must be tired after the trip. It's a bit quiet here, and windy at night, but you'll get used to it." Min nodded calmly. "Yeah, it feels pretty spacious. I was worried being far from the city would be boring, but it actually looks fine." Lan rested her chin on her hand and smiled. "Far, yes, but cheaper. And besides, there are a lot of strange stories around here. You'll like it." The word strange made Min raise an eyebrow. "Strange stories? What do you mean?" She shrugged, her tone half playful, half serious. "They say no one lives on the 5th floor or higher. But sometimes, late at night, I see lights flickering and shadows standing by the windows. At first, I thought someone had already moved in." Min chuckled, trying to sound casual. "Probably just the construction workers checking things. It's a new building, nothing unusual." Lan didn't reply, only gave Min a glance that was both serious and mischievous before turning back to arrange some books on the desk. That first night passed peacefully. Min lay in bed, listening to the wind whistling through the window. He closed his eyes, thinking about tomorrow's classes, but around midnight, he suddenly woke and heard faint footsteps, steady, slow, echoing from somewhere above, peeking through half-closed eyes. Min glanced at Lan. She was fast asleep, breathing evenly. He turned toward the window, listening carefully. The footsteps stopped, silence. He sighed, muttering to himself, "Must be my imagination. First day in a new place. Everything feels strange." He pulled the blanket over himself and shut his eyes again. But just moments later, from the courtyard below, Min caught a glimpse of dim yellow light flickering down from the 5th floor, the floor that was supposed to be completely dark. The next morning, the alarm rang from the phone on the study desk. Min rubbed his eyes and sat up, still groggy after a restless night. Across the room, Lan was already awake, tying her hair in front of the mirror. She turned around with a smile and asked, "Did you sleep well? First night must have felt strange." "Huh?" Min nodded slightly, stifling a yawn. "It was okay, just hard to fall asleep. Probably because it's a new room, with a lot of unfamiliar noises." Lan slipped on her shoes and replied, "Yeah, at night the wind whistles through the gaps in the doors. I was the same at first, it took me a few days to get used to it." "Don't worry." Min looked at her, hesitated, then asked, "Yesterday, did you happen to hear footsteps?" Lan paused, frowning. "Footsteps? In the hallway? I didn't hear anything. Slept straight through till morning." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Guess I imagined it." The two of them went down to the cafeteria on the ground floor. In the morning, the dormitory came alive with noise. Students crowded around for breakfast, voices calling out, and the air was filled with the smell of bread, sticky rice, and porridge. Min grabbed a plate of broken rice and sat at a long table. Lan carefully carried over 2 cups of soy milk, placing one in front of him. "Here, consider it a welcome gift." Min laughed, answering lightly, "Thanks, but if it's like this every day, I might get used to it." Lan giggled, resting her chin in her hand. "As long as you know, living with me, you won't be lonely." While eating, Min noticed a group of upperclassmen at the next table chatting noisily. One tall guy with a buzz cut spoke in a deep voice. "Hey, last night I came back late, passed by the 5th floor, and I swear I saw someone standing at the window. Creepy as hell." His friend waved him off. "Come on, you're just trying to scare the freshmen. That floor's locked up, no one stays there." But the tall guy shook his head and spoke slowly. "I really saw it. Long hair, standing completely still. I almost shouted out, but then I thought better of it. No one would have believed me anyway." Hearing this, Min froze for a second. Lan glanced at him with a mischievous look as if teasing. "See? It's not just me. Lots of people have said the same thing." Min pressed his lips together and forced a smile. "Yeah, maybe they mistook something." After breakfast, the two went to class. The first day was exhausting, filled with long lectures and piles of new materials. By late afternoon, Min dragged himself back to the dorm. Worn out, Lan was sitting with a book. And when Min walked in, she looked up. "You okay? You look like you're about to collapse." He dropped his backpack with a sigh. "New course modules. The professors gave us so many documents. I'll need a few sleepless nights to get through it." Lan closed her book and smiled. "Then lucky for you, I'll stay up and study with you tonight." Misery loves company. Min chuckled softly. "If you can stay awake, that'll be a miracle. Yesterday you slept like a log." Lan pouted and put her hands on her hips. "Don't underestimate me. When I need to, I can be pretty hardworking." That evening, they spread their books across the desk and turned on the bright light. The room filled with the quiet intensity of study, broken now and then by Lan's jokes and Min's steady note-taking. Near midnight, Lan yawned, leaning her forehead on her hand. "I give up. I need to sleep or I won't get up tomorrow." "You keep going." Min nodded gently. "Okay, I'll study a little more. Good night." Lan climbed into bed and pulled the blanket over herself. The room gradually fell silent, with only the sound of Min flipping pages. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind slipped through the window, making him shiver. Min looked up toward the glass. Outside, the sky was pitch black, only faint streetlights glowing yellow in the distance. He stood and walked over to shut the window. But as he glanced upward, Min froze. On the 5th floor, the window in the middle of the hallway was wide open, and in the darkness, there seemed to be a figure standing there, silently watching. His heart pounded. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. The window was shut tight, dark and empty, as if nothing had ever been there. He stepped back, swallowing hard, whispering to himself, "Must be my tired eyes playing tricks." Returning to his desk, he forced himself to focus on the pages. But deep inside, an uneasy feeling crept in, something heavy and hard to shake. The next morning, the sound of church bells in the distance mixed with the roar of motorbikes outside woke Min. He opened his eyes, his head heavy from staying up too late studying. Lan had been up early, sitting by the window brushing her hair. Seeing Min slowly sit up, she grinned. Stayed up late again, didn't you? You look like a panda. Min scratched his head, giving a sheepish smile. Almost 2 o'clock. Too many documents, I couldn't finish them. Lan sighed, lightly scolding. You'll make yourself sick that way. Studying is important, but you have to take care of yourself too. We can split the work and finish it faster together. A little surprised, Min smiled gratefully. That would be great, thanks. They went down to the cafeteria for breakfast. The scene was as lively as ever, groups of students eating and chatting. The clinking of spoons against bowls echoing throughout the hall. Lan insisted on ordering, and while standing in line she leaned over to Min and whispered. Yesterday, you saw something at the 5th floor window, didn't you? Min froze for a moment, then quickly shook his head. No, I just thought I did. Must have been a mistake. Lan smiled, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. I've heard upperclassmen mention it before. At night, the 5th floor windows sometimes swing open, and people say they've seen a white shadow passing by. Min frowned and asked quietly, if that's true, why doesn't management check it out? Just lock the windows properly. Lan shrugged. They've locked it long ago. But maybe the lock is broken. Sometimes it just opens. People say not to get too curious. But honestly, I think it makes things more interesting. He stayed silent, a chill creeping through him. By noon, while they were studying in the room, a knock came at the door. Min opened it to find an older student, tall, wearing a gray shirt, smiling warmly. Hey there, I'm Hung, from the last room down the hall. Heard there's a new student, so I came to say hi. Lan greeted him brightly. Hello, I'm Lan, and this is Min, my roommate. Hung stepped inside, glanced around the tidy room, and nodded approvingly. Nice, you two keep it neat. Living here is fine, but there are a few small things. If you need help, just ask me. Lan rested her chin on her hand and asked mischievously. Tell us honestly, Hung, is there something about the 5th floor? We've heard so many rumors. Hung froze for a split second, his eyes darkening. He cleared his throat and forced a smile. Just silly rumors. That place is empty. Nothing there. Don't pay attention to it. Lan tilted her head, her voice playful yet probing. You're avoiding the question. That means there really is a secret up there. Hung shook his head, though his smile seemed strained. Trust me, the less curious you are, the better. Just focus on your studies. That's all that matters here. With that, he quickly stood, said a brief goodbye, and left. Min watched him go, a strange unease stirring inside. He thought to himself, he was definitely hiding something. Otherwise, why leave in such a hurry? Later that afternoon, Lan persuaded Min to go to the sports ground. The sound of volleyballs and basketballs filled the air, the energy of the crowd lifting Min's mood. During a break, Lan turned to him, eyes glinting. Hey, how about we go check out the 5th floor tonight? Startled, Min immediately shook his head. No, that's dangerous. Hung just warned us not to. Lan leaned closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. But doesn't that just make you more curious? We'll only take a quick look. Maybe there's nothing there at all. Then we'll have peace of mind. Min shook his head firmly. I really don't think it's a good idea. What if something happens? Aren't you scared? Lan gave a small laugh, her tone steady. Of course I'm scared, but with you going with me, I'll be brave enough. Her words left Min silent. He knew it would be hard to stop her completely. That night, Min lay in bed, listening to the wind seep through the cracks of the window. Across the room, Lan tossed and turned, unable to sleep. In the dark, her quiet voice drifted over. Tomorrow night, let's do it. Just once. We'll go up there. Min didn't answer. He only sighed and turned to face the wall. But deep down, a sense of dread coiled tighter and tighter within him. The next night, the dormitory courtyard gradually went dark. The daytime noise and chatter had faded, leaving only the chirping of insects and the wind whistling through the long, empty hallways. Lan slipped on a thin jacket, adjusted her hair in the mirror, then turned to Min with an eager smile. Shall we go? Min sat on the bed, gripping a book he hadn't managed to read a single word from. He sighed softly, his voice low. I don't think we should. Something about this feels wrong. Lan stepped closer, tilting her head as she looked into his eyes. Her smile teasing. If you're scared, I'll just go by myself. At that, Min frowned and stood up sharply. His voice firm. No, wherever you go, I'll go too. But remember, just a quick look and then we come back. Lan chuckled lightly and nodded. They stepped out into the empty hallway. The neon lights above flickered weakly, casting a pale yellow glow that sputtered as if about to die. Their slippers echoed loudly against the floor, every step amplifying the tension in the silence. When they reached the stairwell leading to the 5th floor, Min stopped, staring at the rusty sign bolted to the wall. Do not enter, 5th floor. Area unfinished. Lan smirked, whispering, this sign is ancient. If it was really off limits, someone would be guarding it. Min shook his head heavily but followed her anyway. The stairs were coated with a thin layer of dust, proof that few people ever passed that way. A broken window pane let the wind howl through, producing eerie sounds like mournful sighs. At the top, they stood before a massive iron door, its paint peeling, a thick padlock dangling loosely. Lan leaned closer, whispering with a grin, this lock looks rusted. Let me try. She twisted it, and to their shock, the latch snapped open, falling to the floor with a metallic clack that echoed down the hallway. Min shuddered, his voice trembling. The lock, it was open? Who would leave it like this? Lan didn't answer. She pushed the heavy door. It creaked open with a long, grinding moan, revealing a gap of pure darkness. They stepped inside. The 5th floor was deathly still. The hallway stretched into dim shadows, faintly lit only by the weak glow of a street lamp filtering through the window. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and broken bits of concrete littered the floor. Lan walked ahead, holding her phone out with the flashlight on. She called out softly, as though afraid to be overheard. Hello, anyone here? Min grabbed her arm in alarm, whispering, don't say that. What if the dorm managers hear us? Lan chuckled, whispering back, relax, no one's awake at this hour. They moved down the hall, doors lining both sides. Lan pushed one of the old wooden doors, and it creaked open. Inside, the room was cold and empty, with a broken table and walls stained with dark patches that looked like burn marks. She swung the light across the wall and froze. Scrawled in messy white chalk were the words, "Don't call my name." Min's chest tightened. He sucked in a sharp breath, his voice shaking. Probably just some student messing around. Lan bit her lip, silent, her eyes uneasy. They stepped back into the hall. Just then, from the far end came a sound. Thud, 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 slow, deliberate footsteps. Lan instantly gripped Min's hand, whispering in fear, someone's here. Who is it? Min pulled her against the wall, his heart racing. The footsteps grew louder, closer. In the dim glow, they saw a figure, tall, thin, with long hair hanging down to cover half the face, walking slowly past. Lan held her breath, trembling. Min shut his eyes tight, wishing the shadow away. When he dared open them again, the hallway was empty. The footsteps were gone, as if no one had ever been there. Lan's voice cracked, shaking. Min, you saw it too, didn't you? He swallowed hard, nodding slowly, cold dread rising inside him. Yeah, but why did it vanish? Lan tugged at his hand, her voice trembling. Let's go, right now. Without hesitation, they bolted down the stairs, running all the way back to their room. Slamming the door shut, they collapsed, gasping for breath, faces pale. In the silence that followed, Lan whispered hoarsely, I saw it, and I'm sure that wasn't human. Min didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the window. Across the courtyard, on the 5th floor, the window was ajar, and he swore he saw a pair of dark, hollow eyes staring down at them. Since that night, the dormitory was never the same again. Every time Min lay down, he was jolted awake by strange dreams. Always the same. He found himself standing in the pitch-black hallway of the 5th floor, facing the thin figure with long hair covering its face. Footsteps echoed endlessly, but whenever Min turned around, the hallway was completely empty. By morning, he woke drenched in cold sweat. Lan wasn't faring any better. Normally lively and cheerful, she now often seemed distant, her eyes wandering as though trapped in some dark corner of her mind. One afternoon, while they sat in their room studying, Lan suddenly set her pen down, propped her chin on her hand, and gazed out the window. Her voice came soft, almost dreamy. "Min, do you believe someone is watching us?" Min looked up, his heart sinking, though he forced a smile. "You're just overthinking. With hundreds of students here, maybe someone just happened to glance our way." Lan turned back, her eyes uneasy, though her tone remained calm. "No, this is different. I feel it clearly. Like that shadow we saw the other night is still lingering around." Min froze, unsure how to respond. He remembered that moment in the courtyard, looking up and seeing those eyes staring from the 5th floor. It wasn't just her imagination. That night, the wind howled through the window frame. Min was trying to sleep when he heard it. Soft knocking at the door. Tap, tap. He sat up, heart pounding. Who would knock at this hour? Glancing over, he saw Lan was awake too. Her face pale. They locked eyes, neither daring to move. The knocking came again, this time louder, more insistent. Lan trembled as she stood, inching toward the door. Min leapt up, grabbing her hand tightly, his voice urgent but hushed. "Don't open it, at this hour. It's not normal." Lan bit her lip, wavering. Then, suddenly, the knocking stopped. The hallway fell into a suffocating silence. They sat back to back until dawn. When the first light spilled through the window, Lan exhaled shakily. Maybe it was just someone on this floor playing a prank. Min said nothing, only glanced at the door. On the wooden surface, right beside the handle, was a faint streak, as if someone's hand had dragged across it. The following afternoon, Hung, Min's classmate, unexpectedly dropped by. Tall and lean, with glasses and a steady voice. He sat down, placed a glass of iced water on the desk, and asked bluntly, "You two, did you go up to the 5th floor?" The question made both Min and Lan stiffen. Min tried to stay calm, answering hesitantly, Why do you ask?" Hung took a sip, his eyes darkening. "I've heard from the seniors. Anyone foolish enough to go up there always encounters something." Lan frowned, leaning forward, her tone urgent. "You know something, don't you? Tell us." Hung met their eyes, lowering his voice as if afraid others might hear. "A few years ago, a girl from the 4th floor disappeared. They say that night, she went up to the 5th floor alone. No one ever saw her again." The room grew thick with silence. Min felt a chill run down his spine, while Lan clasped her hands tightly together. Min asked slowly, his voice tight, "Do you believe it? Or is it just a rumor?" Hung was quiet for a long time before answering simply, "Believe it or not, that's up to you. But my advice, never step foot there again." His words fell heavy, like a warning carved into stone. Min and Lan exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with an unspoken fear neither dared put into words. That evening, Min and Lan sat in their room studying as usual. From the hallway came the familiar sounds of students chatting, laughing, and the shuffle of slippers, typical dormitory life. Everything seemed normal, yet Min couldn't shake the unease inside him. Ever since Hung's story, even the smallest noise made him tense. Lan still acted cheerful, but every so often Min caught her gaze drifting, fixed on the dark corner of the window. Trying to lighten the mood, he said, "Hey Lan, midterms are coming. You should really cut back on the late nights. Studying like this non-stop is exhausting." Lan forced a smile, resting her chin on her hand as she murmured, "I know, but lately, every time I close my eyes, I dream of the stairs. I keep walking and walking, but I never get out. That's why I don't want to sleep anymore." Min shivered slightly. He was about to comfort her when, click, the ceiling light flickered, sputtered a few times, then went out. The entire room was plunged into darkness. From the hallway came startled voices, some rooms lighting up with phone flashlights. The power must have gone out across the floor. Lan sighed, turning on her phone light and joking weakly, "Good thing I've still got battery." "Min, do I look like I'm in a horror movie right now?" Min forced a laugh, but his nerves tightened. The small glow from her phone threw warped shadows across the room, twisting everything into strange shapes. Then Min heard it, a faint whisper, right by his ear. "Lan." He spun around, cold sweat breaking out all over. Lan jumped too, eyes wide. "Did you hear that? Someone just called my name." Min nodded, swallowing hard. That whisper hadn't come from outside the door. It came from inside the room. Right beside them, they both froze, holding their breath in the darkness. Then suddenly, the lights flickered back on. Everything was normal again, except on the wall, directly behind Lan, was the faint smudge of a handprint, as if someone had pressed hard against it. Lan saw it and recoiled, her face pale. "Min, this isn't just in my head." Min pulled her down to sit, his voice shaking but firm. "Listen to me. From now on, you can't be alone. No matter what, I'll stay by your side. Do you understand?" Lan nodded, though her eyes never left that handprint. Later that night, when the dorm had fallen silent, Min still couldn't sleep. Lying with his back to Lan, he suddenly felt it, someone standing right beside his bed. His heart hammered as he turned. Lan was there, fast asleep, but in the silver wash of moonlight, at the edge of his bed, stood a gaunt girl with long hair veiling her face, silently staring down at him. Min's mouth dropped open, but his body was frozen. The figure slowly tilted its head, then vanished in an instant. He bolted upright, switching on the light, drenched in sweat. The noise startled Lan awake. She sat up, frightened. "What happened, Min?" His breath came fast and shallow, voice breaking. "Lan, someone was standing here, right next to me." Lan froze, her lips trembling, and fell silent, too afraid to ask more. Outside the window, the wind howled, whipping the curtains wildly, like invisible hands toying with the fabric. The next morning, as soon as Min stepped into the hallway, he saw a crowd gathered in front of room 407. Everyone was whispering anxiously. Min pulled Lan closer and saw a student sitting collapsed on the floor, drenched in sweat, his face pale as chalk. A girl spoke in a trembling voice. He woke up at 3 in the morning, suddenly screamed, and said someone was calling his name outside the door. Then he just stood there shaking, refusing to open it. We knocked for ages before he snapped out of it. Scared us half to death. Lan glanced at Min, both instantly thinking of the night before. Min crouched down and asked the boy, "Hey, who did you hear? Did you see anything?" The student gasped, his voice hoarse. "I just heard my name, but it was a girl's voice, really close, like right beside my ear." After saying that, he shuddered, clutching his head, unwilling to speak another word. That afternoon, when Min and Lan returned from class, they saw Hung sitting on a bench in the courtyard, staring at his phone with worry etched across his face. Lan boldly sat beside him and whispered, "Hung, something strange happened in our room last night too. Honestly, we can't take this anymore." Hung looked up, hesitation in his eyes. After a long pause, he sighed. "I knew sooner or later you two would get caught up in this. This dorm, it's not as simple as it looks." Min leaned forward, his voice urgent. "Please, just tell us the truth. What really happened here?" Hung glanced around to make sure no one was listening before lowering his voice. "When I first started here, the 5th floor wasn't locked like it is now. Back then, there was a senior girl. They say she was under pressure from studies. Maybe family issues too. She made a tragic choice. Right there in the 5th floor hallway. Ever since, no one dared to live up there. The management just used the excuse of unfinished construction to keep it abandoned." Lan trembled, gripping Min's hand tightly. "Then, what we saw, could it have been her?" Hung stared into their eyes and said slowly, "There's one thing everyone always repeats, anyone who hears their name being called, and then sees someone standing at the end of the stairs, sooner or later, something happens to them." The air fell silent. Min swallowed hard, his head spinning. That warning cut deep into him, because he himself had seen the figure standing beside his bed the night before. That night, the dormitory lost power again. In the pitch-black room, Min and Lan sat pressed close together, neither daring to speak, their hearts pounding in unison. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, Knock, 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 slow. Steady, chilling. Min gathered all his courage and called out. Who's there? No reply came. Only the knocking continued, each beat echoing with dread. Lan clutched Min's hand, whispering frantically through ragged breaths. Min, don't open it. Please, don't. The knocking stopped. Min exhaled in relief, thinking it was over. But then, a woman's voice drifted through the silence. Soft and drawn out, calling Lan's name like a wail in the wind. Lan broke down, covering her ears as tears streamed down her face. Min pulled her into his arms, his eyes fixed on the door. And there, in the faint glow from the hallway, he clearly saw the silhouette of a girl standing motionless just outside. Lan sobbed in Min's arms, her whole body trembling violently. The door remained still, yet the silhouette of the girl outside stood motionless, unmoving. The faint glow from the hallway light was just enough to reveal her long hair spilling down, covering half of her face. Min swallowed hard, gripping Lan's shoulders tighter, whispering, "Stay here, don't move, whatever happens, I'll handle it." Lan shook her head desperately, clutching his arm with trembling hands, her voice breaking. "Min, don't open it, if you do, I'm terrified." The knocking began again, not frantic this time, but slow, deliberate, each thud echoing like it was meant to wait them out. Knock, knock, knock. Goosebumps rippled across Min's skin. Gathering his courage, he stepped to the door and pressed his eye against the peephole. But in the narrow view, there was no one. He turned back and murmured to Lan, "There's nobody there, maybe it's just..." Before he could finish, a whisper hissed directly into his ear, so close he felt its cold breath freeze his chest. "Min." He stumbled back and fell to the floor. Lan rushed to him, sobbing, clutching his arm. "You heard it too, didn't you? It's not my imagination, I told you." The air inside the room grew suffocating, as if squeezed by invisible hands. Then suddenly, the power flicked back on. The room lit up brightly. Everything appeared normal again. The door was shut tight. No one outside. Min and Lan stared at each other, pale and gasping. Lan clutched her chest, crying softly, "I can't take this anymore. I want to move out. Min, can we please leave this place?" Min gripped her icy hands, forcing his voice steady. "I'm just as scared, but if we run now, do you really think it'll let us go?" Lan's eyes widened, words failing her. That night, neither dared to sleep. Min leaned against the wall, Lan resting her head on his shoulder. At 3 o'clock, silence blanketed the dorm, heavy and terrifying. Then, from the ceiling above, came footsteps, slow, deliberate, thud, thud, thud. Min's skin crawled. He knew all too well. Directly above their room was the 5th floor, locked and abandoned for years. Lan broke down, burying her face against his chest, whispering through tears like a plea. "Min, I don't want to hear it anymore, please." The footsteps continued, steady and unhurried, then stopped, directly above them, right where they sat. At that same moment, the wall in front of them quivered faintly, and from a crack in the ceiling, a thick black liquid began to seep, dripping cold drops to the floor. Drip, drip, the stain spread across the ground, dark like old blood. Min held Lan tightly, eyes wide, heart hammering wildly, and in that moment, he felt it. Someone, from above, was bending down, staring straight at him. The next morning, pale sunlight filtered weakly through the window. But inside Min and Lan's room the air was still heavy with dread. Neither had slept a wink all night. Lan's eyes were red and swollen. Min's cheeks were hollow, his face drawn like someone who had endured a long nightmare. Lan sat silently on the bed, clutching the blanket tightly, her voice hoarse. "Min, I can't stay here any longer. I've made up my mind. I'll move out and rent a place. Even if it's expensive, I don't care." Min slowly poured her a glass of water and handed it over, replying softly, "I understand, but will leaving now really solve anything? If that thing truly won't let us go, then it doesn't matter where we are." Lan shook her head, her voice breaking into a cry. "Stop saying that. I can't stand this feeling of being watched, of someone whispering right into my ear like last night. I just want to escape this place." She burst into sobs. Min sat beside her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders, whispering comfort. I'm sorry. I'm exhausted too, but we have to stay calm. Maybe we're just haunted by the stories people told. Lan lifted her tearful eyes to him, tense and sharp. You really think what we both heard and saw last night was just our imagination? Min stayed silent. He couldn't admit it aloud. But deep inside, fear gripped every breath he took. Just then, a knock echoed on the door. Both of them jolted in fright. Lan clung to Min's arm, trembling. From outside came a familiar, rough but warm voice. Min, Lan, open up. It's me, Hung. Relieved, Min hurried to the door. Hung stood there looking weary, holding 2 loaves of bread and a bottle of water. He glanced at their pale faces and frowned. You two look awful. Didn't sleep last night, huh? Min invited him in. Hung set the food on the table, leaned back in his chair, and lowered his voice. I knew it, you heard something. Didn't you? Lan fixed her red eyes on him. Hung, what's really on the 5th floor? Why do we keep hearing footsteps above us at night? And why is someone standing outside our door? Hung tapped his fingers on the table, struggling with himself. After a long pause, he sighed deeply, his voice heavy. I didn't want to bring this up again, but maybe you need to know. 4 years ago, a girl took her own life on the 5th floor. The room fell silent. Lan's face drained of color, and Min felt a chill crawl down his spine. His throat tightened as he asked, Why did she do it? Hung lowered his head, his words laden with sorrow. She was in my year. Quiet, gentle, just like you two. One day, they found her hanging in the bathroom on the 5th floor. No one knew why, but ever since, the rumors began. Lan clung to Min's arm, whispering with a trembling voice. Could it be her? Hung lifted his eyes, his expression grave. I can't say for sure, but after that, everyone on the 5th floor moved down. The management locked it, claiming it was unfinished. As for the shadows, the footsteps, anyone who's been here long enough has heard them. Min sat in silence, his heart sinking. Hung's words felt like confirmation that all their recent terrors were no illusion. Suddenly, Lan sprang to her feet, her voice frantic. No, I'm not staying here another minute. Min, let's leave, right now. Min caught her hand, torn and conflicted. At that very moment, footsteps sounded in the hallway, slow, heavy, deliberate. All three turned toward the door. The steps stopped, right outside their room. Silence pressed in. None of them dared to breathe. The footsteps stopped right outside their door, and the air grew suffocating, as if an invisible hand was squeezing the small room tight. Lan held her breath, her nails digging so hard into Min's arm that it hurt. Hung sat frozen for a moment, then tilted his head, signaling Min to stay quiet. He stood, each step toward the door creaking heavy against the wooden floor. As his hand touched the doorknob, Lan whispered through trembling lips, Don't open it, please. Don't. But Hung pulled hard. The door swung open to reveal an empty hallway, lit only by a flickering fluorescent tube that buzzed weakly overhead. No one was there. Hung stood still for a long while, scanning the corridor. Then he shut the door and turned back to them, his voice rough. No one's out there, but I know for certain those footsteps weren't our imagination. Lan clutched a pillow, shaking. I told you, it's still here, it's never left us. Min swallowed hard, patting Lan's back in comfort before turning to Hung, his tone tense. Hung, what if what happened 4 years ago isn't over? What if she's still here, waiting to be seen? Hung sat down, his expression grave. I've thought about that too, but I never talk about it. The more people focus on it, the easier they get haunted. Some even lost their minds just by convincing themselves they saw her. Lan whispered, her voice breaking, but what if she really is here? What if she's trying to say something? At that moment, a frigid gust of wind blew through the window, whipping the curtains violently. All three turned in alarm. Min rushed to shut it, but froze in place. On the glass pane, a smudged handprint was pressed clear, 5 long, bony fingers dragging downward, leaving streaks in the dust. Min stumbled back, his voice hoarse. Hung, Lan, look. Lan screamed and clung to Min's back. Hung stepped forward, his brow furrowed, eyes dark with worry. He touched the print and murmured, "Cold, cold as ice?" The silence was deafening. Only the tick of the wall clock echoed, sharp and dry, each beat dragging along. Hung pulled his hand away, dropping heavily into a chair. His face shadowed. This isn't just rumor. She might be trying to make someone hear her. Lan shook her head frantically, pleading through tears. "I don't want to hear it anymore. I just want to leave. Min, let's go tonight. Please, I can't stay here another night." Min hesitated, his eyes clouded, then turned to Hung. "Hung, if we leave, do you think we'll really escape?" Hung was silent for a long moment. He looked at Min, then at Lan, before sighing heavily, his voice laden with dread. "I don't know, but one thing I do know. She doesn't want anyone to leave." Lan collapsed onto the bed, stunned, her body trembling. Min clenched his fists, fighting to stay composed. He knew, whether they wanted it or not, they were already trapped in a spiral they couldn't easily escape. That night, the three decided to stay together in the same room. They barricaded the door with chairs and tables, turned off every light except for a single dim desk lamp. None of them dared to sleep. Close to midnight, as the wind howled through the hallway, Lan suddenly heard a whisper at her ear. A young woman's voice, soft as smoke, but each word clear as ice. "Give it back to me." Lan's face drained of color, her mouth opening in silent shock. She whipped her head to the side. Min was still there, wide awake, his eyes fixed. They stared at each other. He had heard it too. Lan trembled, pressing herself against Min, her wide eyes quivering, lips moving but no words escaping. Min froze for a few seconds too, then gripped her shoulders tightly, his voice low and strained. You heard it too, didn't you?" Lan nodded over and over, tears streaming down her cheeks, her voice breaking. "Yes, right in my ear, a woman's voice, it said, 'Give it back to me.'" Hung, sitting across from them, grew stern. He leaned forward, resting his hands on the table, his voice dropping lower. "You're absolutely sure? It wasn't just your nerves playing tricks on you?" Min met Hung's eyes, speaking firmly. "No, Lan and I both heard it at the same time. This can't be our imagination." Hung exhaled slowly, stood, and walked toward the window. The dim desk lamp stretched his shadow long across the wall. He stared silently into the pitch-black courtyard outside before speaking, his voice heavy. 4 years ago, there was a girl, she lived on the 5th floor too. A senior in the literature department. One night, her roommate came back from a group study session and found the door locked from the inside. When they broke in, she was hanging there, in the middle of the room. Lan gasped, clutching Min tighter, her voice trembling. Why would she do that? Did she leave anything behind? Hung shook his head slowly. No, not a single note, not a word, but, ever since then, everyone who stayed on the 5th floor said at night they heard knocking, footsteps, and sometimes, the voice of a girl. Many couldn't take it, so they moved out. Management then locked it up, claiming it was unfinished. Min furrowed his brow, speaking carefully. If she really is still here, then what does "give it back to me" mean? Give back what? Hung stayed silent, his eyes sinking deep into the darkness outside. Finally, he turned back, his voice weighed down. I don't know, but before she died, she told her best friend about a diary. Said it was the most precious thing she had. After it happened, no one ever found that diary. Lan clutched her head with both hands, her voice breaking into sobs. You mean, she wants her diary back? But, where is it? Who has it? Min grasped Lan's cold hand tightly, then looked at Hung. There's only one way to find out. We have to go up to the 5th floor. We need to see her old room. Lan shook her head frantically. No, I'm not going there. I don't want to see. I'm too scared. Min turned to her, placing both hands firmly on her shoulders, his voice slow and resolute. Lan, if we don't uncover the truth, then for the rest of our lives, we'll be haunted. Do you really want to hear footsteps outside the door every night? Or whispers in your ear? If she really wants something, the only way is to find it for her. Lan sobbed, staring into Min's eyes. tears flooding down. After a long moment, she gave a faint nod, as though resigning to an unavoidable fate. Hung clenched his fists, then said decisively, "All right, if that's settled, then tomorrow night we go to the 5th floor. Room 503, where it all began." The room fell silent. The desk lamp flickered, casting the three of their shadows against the wall, quivering, as if trembling alongside them. That night, none of them closed their eyes. In each of their minds, only one chilling phrase echoed endlessly. "Give it back to me." The next night, Min, Lan, and Hung stood before the staircase leading to the 5th floor. The dim yellow hallway lights flickered, their shadows stretching long and distorted across the wall. The silence was so heavy that each of them could hear the pounding of their own hearts. Lan clutched Min's hand tightly, her voice trembling. "Min, I'm really scared." Min squeezed her hand firmly, his voice soft but steady. "Just hold on to me. It'll be fine. We're only going up to find the truth." Hung led the way, flashlight in hand, its beam sweeping across each dusty step. They climbed slowly, the wooden stairs creaking beneath their feet. At the top, they stood before the door of room 503. The paint was peeling, the old lock dangled uselessly. Min took a deep breath and reached for the handle. Lan pulled him back, her voice breaking. "Don't open it, I can't take it." Hung placed his hand over Min's and nodded. "We have to. Sooner or later, we'll have to face it." Min pushed down. The door groaned open with a long, screeching creak, revealing only darkness. A sharp gust of wind rushed past them, whipping the curtains inside. They stepped in. Dust blanketed the floor. Furniture lay abandoned, the low ceiling draped in cobwebs. A broken wooden desk leaned to one side, scattered with yellowed papers. Lan whispered, her eyes wide. This is it, isn't it?" Hung nodded, shining his light over the pages. One old newspaper clipping showed a girl with long hair, her face somber and haunting. Min froze as he recognized her. It was the same face he'd seen in the shadows all along. Suddenly, a freezing wind slammed the door shut behind them with a loud bang. Their shadows sprawled jagged across the floor. Lan shrieked, throwing herself against Min, and then, from the corner, a thin girl's figure emerged, long hair cascading over her face. Her voice seeped through the room like a whisper carried on the wind. "Give it back to me." The three stood rooted, their bodies rigid, cold sweat dripping down their backs. She glided closer, each step barely touching the floor. Lan stammered, trembling, It's her, it's really her." Min tightened his grip on Lan's hand, his voice strained. "Stay calm, we need to listen, to understand what she wants." The girl stopped, her shadowed face tilting slightly toward the wooden desk. The silence pressed in, broken only by the sound of their pounding hearts and the wind rattling the windows. "Give back the diary?" Her voice rang clearer than ever before. Hung swallowed hard, his own voice shaking. We have to find the diary. Right now." Lan's pale face twisted with fear, but in her eyes flickered determination. She squeezed Min's hand tighter. "All right, we'll find it, together." The figure shimmered faintly, as if ready to dissolve into the darkness, but lingered still, her hollow gaze fixed on them. The three approached the broken desk, turning through the brittle, yellowed pages. Each scrap felt like it carried fragments of her story. They sensed the diary hidden somewhere beneath layers of dust, but before they could uncover it, a sudden gust tore through the room, scattering the papers into the air. The fluttering pages swirled together, shaping into the ghostly outline of the girl in the center of the room. Lan screamed, "Min, she's back again." Min gripped her hand tighter, eyes wide, voice sharp. "Don't be afraid, if we stay focused, we'll know what she wants." Room 503 fell into a suffocating silence, filled only with the howl of the wind and the frantic breaths of the three inside. The three of them stood frozen inside room 503, the beam of the flashlight casting pale light over the yellowed papers. The girl's shadow lingered, flickering faintly, her long hair veiling her face, her hollow eyes fixed on their every move. Min bent down, carefully turning the brittle pages on the desk, his voice low. The diary, it has to be hidden in here. We need to be careful. Don't scatter everything. Lan gripped Min's hand tightly, her voice trembling. Min, I'm scared, if we touch it. What if she gets angry? Hung stepped forward, lifting a sheet of paper, his voice heavy. Here, there's a small drawer underneath the desk. Looks like someone hid something there long ago. Min nodded faintly, drew in a deep breath, and pulled the drawer open. Inside lay a worn leather-bound diary, just as they had hoped, its cover frayed and damp with the smell of mildew. Lan's hands shook as she reached toward it, a gust of wind surging through the room and whipping her hair into her face. The shadowy figure drifted closer, whispering softly, "Give it back to me." Min lifted the diary, his voice firm. "Here it is, we found it. Take it now." The girl's form stood still, her gaze locked on the diary. In an instant, her outline wavered, flickering like mist about to dissolve. The wind stilled, and silence pressed down so deeply they could hear each other's pounding hearts. Lan exhaled shakily, her voice catching. "It feels like this is what she wanted. I feel a little lighter now." Hung laid a hand on Min's shoulder, speaking softly. "That's right, now all we need to do is place the diary where she once kept it, and it'll finally be at peace." Min nodded, setting the diary gently in the center of the desk. The girl's shadow hovered over it, then slowly drifted toward the door. In the flashlight's glow, her hair lifted slightly as if in a breeze, her eyes still sorrowful but calmer. Her lips curved faintly, and her final whisper carried through the room. "Thank you for giving it back." And then, in a breath, her form dissolved into smoke and vanished. Room 503 fell into silence, no shadow, no footsteps. Lan buried her face into Min's shoulder, her voice trembling with relief. "Is it really over?" Min held her tightly, sighing. "Maybe it is, at least for now." Hung turned slowly, his gaze tracing the cracked walls of room 503, his tone low and thoughtful. "But the memories here remain. Anyone who steps onto this floor will still feel them." Lan pressed her lips together, eyes closed, breathing in the peace that settled after nights of terror. Min clasped her hand, their eyes meeting, fear and relief tangled together. Outside the window, the wind whistled faintly through the cracks. Moonlight spilled across the room, shining onto the old diary resting quietly on the desk, a silent witness to everything that had passed. The three of them walked out of room 503, their expressions somber yet no longer afraid. They knew the dormitory would not haunt them the same way again. At least this story had finally found its end. The next day, pale sunlight streamed through the lower floor hallway. The dormitory was unusually quiet, so different from the terrifying nights before. Min, Lan, and Hung packed their belongings, preparing to leave this place behind. The air still carried a faint musty scent, but the suffocating fear had eased. Lan clutched Min's hand tightly, her voice soft yet filled with emotion. "Min, I'll never forget what happened, but now, I feel more at peace." Min wrapped his arms around her, whispering, "Me too. We faced it, and we made it through." Hung stood beside them, glancing around the room, his voice low but touched with a faint smile. "Room 503 is quiet now. No more shadows, but the dorm will always keep its story. Anyone who walks onto the 5th floor will sense a trace of it, but at least we helped her reclaim her diary." Lan fell silent for a moment, then drew in a deep breath, gazing at the courtyard glowing in the morning light. "Do you think she's still watching us from somewhere? But this time, to thank us, not to haunt us?" Min nodded, squeezing her hand firmly. "Maybe so. We gave her back what she wanted. Now, she can finally rest." The three of them descended the stairs, morning light spilling over each step, stretching their shadows long across the wooden floor. Birds chirped from the garden outside, their song filling the hallway with a rare sense of relief. As they walked out the dormitory gate, Min turned back, staring at the old building with eyes both misty and somber. Lan laid a hand on his shoulder and whispered gently, "We'll never forget, but at least we don't have to be afraid anymore." Hung let out a small laugh, his voice tinged with humor. Who would have thought this quiet dorm could hide a story straight out of a horror film? All three laughed softly, stepping out into the morning light, their silhouettes merging with the dawn. The dormitory remained still, only the faint breeze drifting through its windows, like a gentle reminder of what had passed. Lan turned her head one last time, whispering, "Thank you," for letting her rest in peace. Min squeezed her hand tighter as they walked on. "And thank you, dormitory, for teaching us courage." The morning light washed over their faces. Soft and calm, the memories lingered, but the fear had given way to composure. A lingering chill remained, but no longer unbearable. The story had ended, yet the dormitory still stood silently, waiting for new footsteps, and new stories it would quietly witness. And that is the end of this tale. Thank you for listening until the very end. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. It means so much and motivates us to bring you more haunting stories. If you have any questions or notice any mistakes in the story, feel free to comment below. Thank you again for watching. Shadows in the Night will see you in the next story.